We'll count it.
1, 2, 3.
Clap.
I think Ash was behind on that one. Welcome to another episode of Let's Rewatch, the show where we like to watch movies that we loved in our youth and see if they're still any good. As always, I'm Nick.
I'm Bret.
I'm Sam.
I'm Ash.
Am I in this?
That's Bryce, sounding sad as ever.
Bryce, you sound sicker than I am.
This week, Bret couldn't make it.
Sick of the podcast.
Sick Bret is going to be joining us in his place.
Hello,
He
everyone.
sounds similar to Bret, but he's sick Bret.
Yeah, I'm really sick today.
And this time around, we're watching Labyrinth from 1986, 30 years ago.
Shit, that sounds old when you say it
Wow.
like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that what we were trying to do here is do the 30th anniversary of Labyrinth?
Yes.
Woo, woo. Happy birthday, Labyrinth.
Are there any festivities or events going on around the 30th anniversary?
There are a couple of art shows going on here in Los Angeles. I believe one is a tribute show at Gallery Nucleus, and there might be another one at Fan Alley, which I think is in Orange County.
And Pop Vinyl released the Labyrinth series Pop Vinyls.
Oh, that was for the anniversary?
Yeah, for the anniversry as well. They were
Jareth
released
Pop looks
in...
amazing.
Yeah, I want one so bad. If our listeners want to buy one and send it to me.
Pop vinyls with like a creepy amount of bulge.
Oh, God.
I don't think there's any bulge on the Pop Vinyl, thankfully.
Aw.
There should
There's
be.
also the annual Labyrinth Masquerade that happens in Los Angeles.
Yes. Yeah.
Sounds amazing, but it costs like $500, so boo.
Yeah, there was a few years ago when the Harmontown podcast did a Halloween episode, and they do their podcast live at Meltdown. And they invited everybody to come dressed as Jareth.
Oh, my God.
So everybody on stage and everybody in the audience were all Jareth.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I wish I was there for that one.
I'm so jealous.
So this is Labyrinth from 1986. Of course, directed by one of the best filmmakers of all time, Jim Henson. This was Jim Henson's third theatrical movie.
What?
Really? Only his
Really?
third?
Wow.
You're surprised? You thought there were more before this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd done Great Muppet Caper and Dark Crystal before this.
Wow.
Okay,
Although he'd
what
done a bunch of TV movies like Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas and a bunch of Muppet stuff.
Okay.
But as far as
Yeah.
theatrical movies, this was his third.
Was the Muppet movie, the first one with the Rainbow Song, was that not a theatrical release?
It was, but James Frawley directed. Jim Henson did not direct.
Oh,
In
interesting.
fact, this and the only Muppet movies that he directed, well, actually, theatrical movie was The Great Muppet Caper. He directed the Muppet Vision 3D, which was the thing at California Adventure.
Oh, that's now
across from
gone.
Disneyland, which is now gone, which I'm bummed about. He directed some TV movie stuff, but as far as like the theater releases, the only one he directed was The Muppet Caper.
Interesting. That's kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas. Everybody credits Tim Burton as being the director, but Henry Selick is the actual director of that movie.
Yeah. Frank Oz directed one of the Muppet movies, and I think it kind of went around the team. But still, I mean, it's a surprise because he did some great movies. Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, very well-known movies. And of course, Jim Henson is one of my all-time heroes. I love this dude. I love Muppets. I love everything about Muppets, Fraggle Rock, everything.
Oh my God!
You're thinking, listener, I love Muppets too, Nick. No, listener. Nick has a Muppet of himself. That's
Nick
how much
literally
he loves
is
Muppets.
a Muppet.
But I'm not...
He is a Muppet.
But I'm not like special. Like you can go to the what's the big toy store in Manhattan?
Oh, yeah, I know what
The
you're
one
talking
that
about.
just
though.
closed?
FAO Schwartz.
Yes.
You go
Yeah, I
to FAO
think-
Schwartz in New York, or you just go to their website and you can have a Muppet made of yourself.
Wow.
It's not,
That's
Or
awesome.
maybe not anymore.
maybe not anymore. Maybe now.
Maybe
it's
you
too
are
late.
special, Nick.
Yeah. Along
I mean,
with hundreds
yeah,
of people
you
who did
started
it
that
before.
off with "I'm not special," but I like went out of my way to have a Muppet of myself.
Yeah.
So
But it's not that.
Grain of
it's not
salt.
like impossible. Yeah. So yeah, I love Muppets, which might make my opinion of this movie a little surprising, which we'll get to. But our stars are Jennifer Connelly, who, of course, I love in everything I've seen her in. This was her third or fourth movie, and she's worked with some huge directors. Her first movie was Once Upon a Time in America, and her second movie was Phenomena, a Dario Argento movie. So she'd worked with Sergio Leone and Dario Argento before working with Jim Henson as a teenager. Like, that seems like an incredible way to get started in the film industry.
Well, yeah.
And, of course, she's just fantastic at everything. Like, The Rocketeer, she's amazing.
Oh, I forgot about she was in that.
Yeah. Requiem for a Dream.
Ugh.
Oh.
Ugh.
You're not a fan?
I mean, I will not deny that Requiem for a Dream is an amazing movie. Do I want to see it ever again?
It's hard to watch.
No, I don't ever want to see it again. Yeah. Once was enough.
I'm going to add it to the list because I've never seen it.
Oh, man.
Prepare
it's hard to watch.
To just have like a meltdown. You've never seen it either?
I know the song.
Sam, I'm going to tell you right now, you will not like that movie. Okay?
Yeah,
don't watch it.
Safe bet.
It is like emotionally scarring. I'm not kidding. When I saw that movie, I sat in silence for like a half an hour afterwards, just like in shock.
Yeah, I don't think I need to do it again.
No, once is enough.
I'll take Labyrinth a million times over Requiem
like
for a
people
Dream.
say Train Spotting is like intense. Like, no, it's nowhere near as intense as that movie.
Yeah. But I want to make a recommendation because I bet none of you have seen, and I bet a lot of our listeners haven't seen Waking the Dead, which I think she's just absolutely phenomenal in. It's Jennifer Connelly and
she colonized herself.
And Billy Crudup, and it's one of those things where I don't even want to say what it's about because that gives away too much. But it's a very emotional, and you will be sobbing at the end of this movie. But she's just
we know what it's about. It's about waking the dead
in a way that you probably don't expect. But then it's hard to top our other star in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. David Bowie.
He can't be topped.
No.
Too much bulge.
You're real obsessed with that bulge, Bret. You have
We've
not
been
stopped
making
talking
David
about
Bowie
it.
bulge jokes on this podcast and in real life nonstop for years.
You know that wasn't his real bulge, too, either, right?
You're saying there were 3 of those contact juggling crystals?
Yeah.
And one was just in his pants?
In a sock.
So I think this was David Bowie's, it might have been his second theatrical movie. He was in Man Who Fell to Earth in 1976.
Yeah.
Then this, and then Last Temptation of Christ in 88.
Wow.
Like, looking him up on IMDb, he doesn't actually have a lot of movie credits, except his music is in hundreds of movies.
Yeah.
But he doesn't appear in a ton of movies. And I wanted to kind of gamify this a little bit. I found that David Bowie has played 3 real-life people in movies. Do you know which 3 real-life people he's played?
Nikola Tesla.
Know one. Yeah, that's the only one I know.
Okay.
Was that the only one I knew?
Himself?
Jareth, the Goblin King.
Okay, that's a real life. Yeah.
Himself? Yeah, did he play himself? Oh,
In
yeah.
Extras, he played himself.
And in we watched it. Dance Off. Zoolander, thank you. Yeah.
I wasn't actually counting that one.
Oh, damn it.
So
Well, you should. So then you're wrong. 4.
Yeah, 4. Maybe some of our listeners have already guessed. He was, of course, Pontius Pilate in Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
And he played Andy Warhol in Basquiat.
I forgot about that. He was so good, too.
Which is such a brilliant choice. Like, who do we get to play Andy Warhol? Oh,
The
David
other
Bowie.
weirdest dude we can find.
Yeah. So, yeah, we love David Bowie. Of course, he's great in this. I think he's just fantastic in Prestige.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
who knows
Nailed it.
how accurate that is to Nikola Tesla, because nobody knows what that dude was really like, but he was great in the movie. So those are our big stars, but of course you will not see a lot of the standard Muppet performers in this movie. Frank Oz, Dave Goltz, Steve Whitmire, Kevin Clash, they all play characters in these movies, and you'll never see their faces, but you'll hear their voices a little bit.
Interesting fact, too. if you don't mind me interjecting, but the very first episode we ever recorded for this podcast, we talked, which actually wasn't the first one we ever released. The very first episode we ever recorded was the American Werewolf.
Okay.
And we talked about in that the news had just broke that they were doing a Labyrinth 2. And
That's right.
That
several
seems to have
years later,
materialized.
they are still supposedly doing a Labyrinth 2. So I have no update on that, but interesting connection.
James Franco's in it.
I looked on IMDb and I couldn't find it on IMDb.
Really?
be a
It's because
little
it's
Cherokee.
the Labyrinth. It's the Labyrinth. This one is
weird.
Labyrinth. I know. I just looked it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It says it's supposed
Interesting.
to come out this year. But
Well,
who
that's
knows?
unlikely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this
Weird.
just our second Frank Oz movie then?
Uh,
Because he was in The Werewolf.
yeah, I don't know if I would call this a Frank Oz movie. It's a movie that Frank Oz kind of appears in.
It's the Frank Oz connection.
That was the
Yeah,
song
whatever.
that was supposed to be in the Muppet movie, the Frank Oz connection, but last minute they changed it to the Rainbow Connection. Yeah, it played a little bit better.
Oh, so the Labyrinth you're talking about, Sam, is not the sequel to the Labyrinth. It's a different thing.
What is it then with James
It says
Franco?
it's a collection of original shorts exploring the unknown and unexplained and the unimaginable. I don't
Why
think it
did
has
they name it the Labyrinth? That's just fucked up.
because they're shitty.
James Franco,
How
if you're
dare they.
listening, I need answers.
I'm sure he
Very
is.
upset. I'm very
Please
upset.
tweet at
Listen.
Sam.
That way I can ignore your tweet like you've ignored my questions, James Franco.
Also, he's not even really in it. It just says that he's the voiceover.
Well, damn
You've
it.
been
He knows.
so lied to.
He's the voice of the labyrinth.
Whatever. Fine.
The stories end, and then James Franco comes on voiceover, and it's just like, wasn't that cool?
So
Want
I
to see a trick I can do with my arm?
Oh no, not that trick. Did I think I've told you guys, and it might be an interesting little story for the podcast. When I saw 128 Hours in the theater, somebody actually had like passed out or had a fit or a seizure
wow.
or something when that scene happened. And it was literally a moment in real life where somebody stood up in a movie theater and says, "Is there a doctor in the house?"
Wow.
Whoa.
What?
Somebody just completely melted down when that happened.
Crazy.
Crazy. That's like a thing that doesn't actually happen.
Oh, it happened. And there were far too many people who just didn't give a shit and were trying to watch the movie.
Of course.
When I left the theater to try to get them to stop the movie and call somebody, and they're like, no.
Were we all together when they pulled the fire alarm at Batman?
Yeah.
At the
Yes.
Dark Knight? And
That was the best.
the fire
Well,
alarm went off,
it
and they're like,
wasn't,
everyone
but it
leave
was.
the building, and fucking nobody got up.
Yeah.
We're
well,
like,
the thing
we're
is,
not leaving Batman. Get the fuck
Yeah.
out.
This is
Wait a
Batman.
minute, was this after the shooting?
No, it's way
This was
before.
way
This
before.
is
Oh, okay.
Dark Knight. Yeah. But
Okay.
the time the alarm was pulled was right when the like clown dudes were trying to cut the alarm to the bank.
Yeah,
And
so we
and it-
thought it was part of the movie.
Yeah, it totally
Yeah.
synced up, and we're like, oh, they cut the
Yeah,
wrong wires.
Right when they cut the wires in the movie, just all the lights go out,
And it
we're
goes,
just like,
pew,
and the alarm goes off. We're like, wow.
Yeah.
dark
Digital
for a
sound
while.
is amazing.
And nobody moved. Like, nobody wanted to get up and leave because we were like, but it's Batman. Like, I'm not leaving Batman.
I can't leave you, Batman.
And it wasn't just any theater. I mean, this was the ArcLight too. So it
Oh,
was
wow.
the
like
ArcLight
I'm
Hollywood.
Not, yeah, it's like I'm not leaving my expensive fucking ArcLight seat, you know?
Hey, but we got free tickets.
Yeah, that was super bizarre though.
And I think we used our free tickets on Transformers too.
Oh, that was
Such a waste.
Yeah, everyone was all excited and fucking what's his face?
Michael Bay showed up.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm Michael Bay. I was just hanging out. I wanted to see my fans." And everyone goes, "Woo!" And then, but that was before the movie. And then the movie plays, and at the end of it, everyone's just like, "Fuck that guy."
Did you guys hear this thing about the next Transformers movie they're shooting right now? They apparently have some flashback to Hitler. I don't know how that fits into Transformers. So they needed a place to shoot Hitler's mansion, the scenes of Hitler's mansion. They're shooting in England. They got Churchill's house.
What?
Oh, yeah. people are not happy.
The irony and the weirdness.
Yeah, they dressed Churchill's house as Hitler's mansion and stationed SS guards and everything outside and shot there.
Oh,
That is horrifying in its ignorance and uncaring.
There will be a special place in the seventh circle of hell for Bayham then.
Ugh,
where he will be subjected to his own Bayham.
Like, of all of the people and movies that would be done for, like, I'm super not surprised that Transformers is just like, let's do it. Let's turn it into Hitler's house.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. So, yeah, Labyrinth. I think I'll kind of surprise and not surprise people with my perspective here that I don't remember enjoying this movie that much.
No.
I don't know why you say that you don't like this movie now when we saw it, you absolutely loved it.
Well, I was excited to see it. I think the not surprising thing here is there's been this weird pattern that anything that Ash likes, I don't like.
That's
and
true.
Vice versa.
Yeah.
That I'm not like intentionally trying to perpetuate, but I don't see.
I don't know why we're friends.
So what do you expect from this movie, Ash? And we've seen it fairly recently. Bryce, you and me have seen it.
Oh, I see this movie all the time. Like,
Okay.
to put this into perspective, this is quite possibly hands down one of my most favorite movies ever. Like, this is one of the movies that really defined my childhood. Like, I've seen this movie over and over and over and over again, countless times. I own the soundtrack. I know all of the words. I sing all of the songs, so prepare for that because it's going to happen. It just is. But I absolutely love this movie. And I think this movie probably, also really harvested my love for David Bowie,
It harvested it?
Yes, it harvested it.
It took it
out
from
of my
you
heart.
and made something useful out of it?
Yes, it did.
For the whole culture to enjoy?
Well, thanks for appreciating my creative language.
Okay.
But
It just sounds so sinister. Like,
it is. It's David Bowie.
enjoyment.
I mean, look at him in this movie. He is sinister. But I think
He steals babies.
for me, this movie, Jim Henson was like trying to make a movie that, really spoke to teenage girls. And I think he did an amazing job because this was everything I wanted when I was a teenage girl. Like absolutely everything. Like, yes, I fuck everyone else. They're assholes, just like Sarah is. Like, that's how you are as a teenage girl. You're like, ugh, my parents are the worst. And then, you want to escape to this magical, fantastic world where there's some like really hot dude who's dressed as like a fairy. Like, yes, that's everything I think a teenage girl wants.
Bryce?
And
Absolutely.
he's stealing babies.
We know what you need to do for Ash now.
But yeah, this is definitely everything I've ever loved in a movie. It's just fantastic. I love it. I really like. It's like Jurassic Park in this movie. Like, literally, these are my two favorite movies ever. So, like, yes, like I will.
That's a
fight.
hell of a comparison.
He's just
They're
not
very different
comparing them.
movies. I'm not comparing them.
Well, I don't know what, because I don't think I've seen this more than once.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
That's sad.
Brett and Sam, you've both seen it
Yes.
recently.
No. I can't remember the last time I saw this. I don't remember. I know I would watch it every year for Halloween in high school, but honestly, it could have been since high school since I've seen it. So I don't know. I really, really loved it, and I think I will still really, really love it. And
Yeah.
that's, I don't know. The characters and like the fantasy world is awesome. I don't think the story is particularly deep, but it's really entertaining and enjoyable.
What do you think, Brett?
So, I think this is the last of the movies that is in my personal like mental category of all of the movies that were like too dark in like color palette for me as a child. I feel like I've mentioned it before, like when we were watching Neverending Story or The Dark Crystal, like the things that it's like the vibe is too weird. But I don't but I don't remember anything about the movie really, except the magic dance song and the. Yeah, I saw it once when I was a really young child, and I don't really know what to expect because I don't know what it's about really. There's so much imagery and stuff that I feel like I'm saturated with the look of it, but I don't know what the movie's about. So, based on my other expectations of similar types of movies, I don't know if I'm gonna love it, but I'm looking forward to finding out if it'll actually be good.
All right. So, what do you expect, Bryce?
Actually, I really liked this movie as a kid. With Ash, that I saw this one a lot, so I'm probably still gonna like it.
On top of that, Bryce could do the contact juggling that David Bowie does in the movie.
Ooh, that's why you fell in love.
Crusty jugglers.
That is how you wooed Ash. You put a ball in your pants and then you contact juggled the rest of them, and Ash just melted, and that is the end of your story. And when you guys get married, I'll tell that story at your wedding.
And then Bryce will do some contact juggling.
Perfect. No, that he's going to save that for the wedding night.
Yeah, it was Michael Motion, who's a contact juggler, who a lot of people credit as actually inventing contact juggling. I'm not totally sure. He did literally write the book on it, but he was actually reaching under David Bowie's armpits and doing contact juggling while looking to the side in a monitor.
Oh.
Which is like a Whose Line Is It Anyway thing that they do, where like one person will put their arms through the other person and do an improv scene.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a lot more impressive when you think about the fact that he like couldn't actually even really see what he was doing. He was just all feel. I guess he was looking at a monitor, but that's like...
That would be worse.
Yeah,
But still, yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And it's not hard to do while you're looking either. It's that contact juggling that takes like years of practice, right?
Yeah, you said it's not hard to do. I think you meant to say it's not easy to do.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's a very complex skill, I think. It looked like Bryce had something to add.
I've said too many words already.
All right. I said too much. All right, so to protect Bryce from having to talk anymore, we're going to rewatch Labyrinth. It's available on your rental services, but not on your Netflixes and Hulus. So you might want to pause the podcast, rewatch Labyrinth, and join us when you're finished. Dance magic, dance, 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 dance. Dance, 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 dance.
So, quick disclaimer for our millions of listeners that I know went out and Googled the Michael Motion contact juggling book. It was actually written by James Ernest, so you're welcome.
Thanks, Bryce.
So we've paused on the credits here, and there's a card here that says Jim Henson acknowledges his debt to the works of Maurice Sendak. That's the Where the Wild Things Are guy, right?
Oh.
Maurice Sendak?
Oh,
yeah?
interesting. Well, we were just, as we were watching it,
right now.
I was just sitting here and suddenly it clicked for me and I was like, oh my God, this is Wizard of Oz. Like, wow.
Well, she had that book and the stack of source material in
Yeah.
her room.
But like, I never really made, I mean, I don't think it's directly Wizard of Oz or anything, but I never really made that connection before, like the similarities between the two.
I didn't either.
I think what they were trying to say is there's a lot of influences that went into this. Wizard of Oz, of course, being part of it. And they wanted to really acknowledge those influences. Mm-hmm. You know,
Totally.
Wizard of Oz being one, you know, this card in the credits giving credit to Maurice Sendak, you know,
And
lots
his, like,
of different things.
Big furry monster guy, and I could totally see the connection there.
Yeah.
Oh
totally.
yeah, I guess Ludo is kind of like the Where the Wild Things Were monsters. I could see that.
I'm not going to lie, Nick. I thought you were going to open this episode up with, let's address the elephant in the room. This stole so much from The Princess Bride.
I don't know that I agree with that statement.
They're
you
in the forest, like the creepy forest, and like
They're in a forest, yes.
The very, very, very terribly comped ROUS forest dance song.
But they're ROUBs. the bird things. I don't know. I felt like I don't think it ripped it off by any means, but there are a lot of similarities just in that like fantasy genre. And I think it came out close to the same year. I don't know. There's like a stinky bog thing that like bubbles, and there's like bubbling stuff in the Princess Bride forest.
I think you're connecting the visual of like the farting swamp with the gas that would blow out and shoot out fire from the ground.
Totally.
Yes.
And the
Okay.
swamp
Yeah.
with the ROUSs. There's a similar visual there, I think. But
Yes.
Princess Bride was 87.
Okay.
Yeah, a few years later.
This was 86, right?
Yeah. So we were actually talking a little bit about the scene, Bret, you were talking about saying was very badly comped. The dancers that took off their heads, the brightly colored birds. And I think I really enjoyed that as a very classic Henson performer thing. You know, Ash was making the point that that's not green screen, that's a difference mat, where you actually have performers in solid black on a background of solid black. Yeah. It's a compositing technique where they can suck out the black.
Yeah, it was black velvet that they were on.
And I think
it took 3 performers per each of those characters to do. So there's 3 people in black suits standing behind them, like choreographed.
Oh, really? It wasn't
Yeah.
like my guess was that it was like they had the forearm was like a human's arm, but like, have you ever seen like the half puppets? So they have like the forearm is connected, and then like the shoes on the feet are connected, but they like move it around like it's a puppet.
Those ones weren't connected.
Yeah, no, they were 3. They're each of the characters there, the fire dancers, each one is in 3 parts. So there's an upper torso and head, there's the middle torso, and then there's the legs, the butt and the legs. And they're each actually not even connected. They just look like they're connected when they have them together, but that's how they're able to like fly the head off and like fly them apart. And if you notice in certain scenes, they like join several of them together to like make them look like a bigger monster or make them look like a longer monster. So they're all actually 3 separate parts that they choreographed. 3 people had to choreograph the motion together. It's pretty funny when you like actually see the behind the scenes and you see them do it, because it just looks like you just watch it and you're like, how could this ever be good? You know?
Well, yeah, there was like a shit ton of people in that.
Yeah,
scene.
there's a lot of people that you just don't see at all.
I think people think of Henson puppetry as hand up inside the head of a puppet.
Because of Kermit.
But when you go way back to the original Henson creations, there was a lot of dance performance in it. You see this and some of the stuff they did in, I can't remember, one of the old talk shows where they would do guest performances, you know, and some of the stuff in the original Muppet Show. It was dancers. It was truly athletic performances operating these puppets. And they do things like, I love when she's falling down that pit and it's hands arranging themselves to talk.
That was fantastic.
Which is a form
so
of
cool.
puppetry. So it's not just a hand inside of a head of a puppet. It's, you know, another of my most favorite effects is, I can't remember the name in this movie, but it's the dog that Didymus rides on. But in the Muppet Show, there's a character called Muppy. It was almost exactly the same character, where sometimes it's a puppet dog and sometimes it's an actual dog.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the same shot. You would see Muppy like at a desk looking at camera, ducks behind the desk, and then the real dog runs off screen.
And they totally had one of those in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a bunch of it in this, and I love that effect. So it's like
It's so awesome.
they do not contain themselves in the techniques for puppetry.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely worship.
And that was a really convincing puppet too for the dog.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I could just tell because I have a dog. I'm like, you can't get that type of performance out of a real dog.
And there were
But it looked
moments
great.
where it was a real dog with a puppet on the back of that dog with even a little bit of articulation on that puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when he ran across the bog.
Yeah.
Like,
or even
that was
he goes
crazy.
past Hoggle and he goes, pardon us or something, or like coming through or whatever. And the puppet of Sir Didymus turns, but he's on the real dog. But the puppet turns and says, pardon us to Hoggle and keeps going. And the way that Hoggle worked was really amazing as well, because it's I believe it was a girl that is actually playing Hoggle, who's in the makeup and getup, and then the head was like puppeted by like I want to say 3 or 5 different people.
And is it radio controlled?
It's radio controlled. There was like somebody just doing the eyes, somebody doing the lips, like, you know, like each part of the puppet being controlled by different people. And then there's the guy like doing the voice as well. So it's
I gotta
pretty
say,
impressive.
like not a dig at the rest of the cast, but Hoggle was by far and away the best actor in the movie.
And if you ever have the opportunity, if you ever want to see some of this stuff live and in person, Brian Henson does a show called Puppet Up. And it's kind of advertised as more of an adult themed thing, but it's basically improv comedy with puppets. And you'll get to see a lot of these different techniques. And one thing that's just absolutely fascinating, and it reminds me of something you just said, Ash. At some point in the show, they wheel out this machine, which is basically a computer in a rack with controls that a puppeteer holds, and they are puppeteering a computer animated character there on stage.
Oh, whoa.
So
That's
it's
crazy.
not radio control of a puppet head, it's wired control of a character there on screen.
Huh.
And
Wow.
that's
That's
as
pretty
much
cool.
puppetry as anything else.
Yeah.
They're doing a run in Vegas now, so if you ever have the chance to see Puppet Up, it's glorious, and you see a lot of like how they do a lot of this stuff built
Yeah,
around
we
an
went
improv
together.
comedy show. Did you?
Is that
go?
coming?
I went with you.
That's right. You went with.
it
me
was
once.
awesome.
Yeah, so you remember that.
I
Is that
was
coming
kinda
back to LA?
I don't know, but I was
I
kind of
wouldn't be
skeptical
surprised.
at first, and it was a fucking magical night. It was like, it was so much fun, especially as somebody who works in stop motion. I
Yeah.
never worked in puppetry, and I never knew how they did it, and it's just amazing. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
They even do their entire closing number with just bare hands. They do a song with like when she fell down the pit and the hands were talking.
That's
Their
cool.
entire closing number is just bare hands.
Wow.
That's
Yep.
awesome. And like Sam talked about it for a while afterwards, and it was like, that was fucking awesome.
And then I fucking nerded the fuck out because they came to my work. The puppeteers,
Really?
and I had to like help direct a film shoot with these puppeteers, and I was like,
wow.
oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Yeah, it's amazing because they're both great puppeteers, but some of the best improv comedians I've seen.
Oh yeah,
So
and
it's a really good
they-
show.
it's funny like the way they handle the puppets with such care. Like when they're
Yeah.
not on screen, they don't like it's not thrown around. It's like sitting on their lap like a real character. They treat it like a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's just they're super into it, and like the thought
Respectful.
process is all there. Yeah, you know they think
Yeah.
it through.
I feel like that's another thing that really sells the puppets in this movie is they're treated very real, even with the camera choices, like the camera angle choices. And it's like they'll cut to an emotional close up of just a reaction of somebody like Ludo or Hoggle, or even the dude with the bird on his head. Like we cut to a close up
Yeah.
of the bird and just the bird and treat the bird like its own entity. And I think it's stuff like that that really sells them as like I feel like these are real characters and not puppets.
Yeah, like even the snail at the beginning or whatever.
Oh,
like
yeah.
gets
he's a
a
caterpillar.
caterpillar,
worm.
whatever. He gets
He's
like
the
he gets
cutest.
like a whole like full screen close up while during their conversation, and it's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there was one year at Comic-Con, I saw an actual panel. I think it was one of the Nerd HQ panels with Sesame Street characters.
Oh wow.
And granted, I was seeing their
Oh,
performers.
just the characters? Or
Well, the performers, the humans were there in full view, sitting on a chair.
but they were playing the characters.
But it's amazing how quickly your mind just blanks them out.
wow.
And there's Cookie Monster on stage in front of me, and I was having a moment. It was crazy. And there was a point where they're like, somebody was talking about Bert, and no, it was Grover, and like, well, Grover's here. You guys want to talk to Grover? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to talk to Grover. And he just goes and gets a duffel bag, but in a moment, Grover's there,
Wow.
At the end of this show, somebody had to come out on stage and vacuum up cookie crumbs. I had tears in my eyes because they were there. They were physically there in front of. It was amazing.
That's
That's
awesome.
cool.
But
Yeah.
don't eat Grover's cookies because they're not actually edible for people.
I've heard this. There's one, I can't remember who it was, but one celebrity was on Sesame Street who took a bite out of a cookie and deeply, deeply regretted it.
No.
I mean, they're not gonna hurt you, but they don't have butter because the oil will stain the puppet.
Oh,
and
that
so
makes
they're just
sense.
like disgusting.
They're built to crumble.
Yeah, they are.
So why was the baby dressed like Bluto from Popeye?
I don't know.
Or like
that-
It
Waldo?
accentuated its baby curves.
Yeah, I like the Waldo better because the whole
Yeah.
movie's a where's Toby?
Where's Toby? It was really weird to me when they were doing the Dance Magic Dance song and Toby's like standing in the middle of the room. Babies don't
Yeah.
just stand.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
babies sit, but he's just like standing nonchalantly in the middle of the room.
Holding the hands of the goblins.
Yeah, I think the goblins were holding him
it was
up.
super cute.
Maybe, but it was like, I don't know. You never see a baby standing. Like, what are you
Well,
doing there,
he's also
baby?
a little bit older too. He's
Yeah.
not like an infant.
He could
he's
be
like,
walking.
He's a
Yes.
he's like not walking, but he's like able to stand. 'Cause
Let's
there is a
discuss your knowledge of babies, shall we?
It's
bit-
limited.
Apparently, not very much.
Limited.
So speaking of the Dance Magic Dance song, the rest of the movie aside, that's like the most iconic thing from the movie, and I think that sequence is just objectively terrible.
Take it
Wow.
back.
Interesting.
But
I
like,
would.
in
I
the-
mean,
even like compared to almost any other scene in that movie, like I think that was my least favorite scene, which is weird because that's the
Really?
one I know. Yeah.
It's a bit of a non sequitur. Like, what does this dance number have to do with anything right now?
Also, it's just
I
like
guess so.
just like a bunch of people dancing with a baby is just like this is not entertaining for me.
But you know what it did for me? There are every now and then a moment where David Bowie is about to start singing. Then David Bowie sings and it just triggers something in my brain like, God damn, his voice is just
Amazing.
incomparable.
Right? So
And that-
amazing.
When he starts singing Dance Magic Dance, it's like so uniquely his perfect voice
yeah.
that just hit me like a ton of bricks.
Well, I'll tell you this, Brett. Would you have enjoyed this that scene more if it was the first choice that they had to play that character, which was Michael Jackson dancing with a baby?
Ooh.
It's a trick question. The answer is no.
You made it dark.
But yeah, no, I think, but like there was so much cool stuff in the movie, and that one just it didn't. Maybe my expectation was too high because it's like the popular thing, but like it didn't live up to the hype.
That's interesting. That I guess the "You remind me of the babe" mantra is very well known. I wouldn't say that it's like the most iconic thing of the movie, though. I think the most iconic thing of the movie is the ball sequence.
Or like the most oft quoted, I think, is what I
Yeah,
meant
it's
there.
definitely quoted for sure. Yeah.
So I've got this thing. It's my interview with a vampire thing that always kind of creeps me out. When I see an actress who I have a crush on now when they're like 16. Just like Kirsten Dunst in Interview with a Vampire was like more like 12. But you can see the person that they're going to grow up to be later. And it just adds this creepy level to the whole movie. Like I see 16-year-old Jennifer Connelly. I'm like, that girl's 16. Like that's not an attractive
Well,
person.
and like I was saying
but she
before
looks like Jennifer Connelly.
before we watched it too, I was like, how old is David Bowie when they recorded this? Because that age
Yeah.
difference.
Is there supposed to be an attraction between them?
Yeah.
Oh,
he fell in love with
absolutely.
her.
Are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Okay.
That's what the whole
No,
dance sequence.
Did you
Yeah.
listen to the lyrics of the songs?
No, I got you. And Sam, I definitely got it in that scene when there was like the ball dance when she was hallucinating. That's what I thought when you guys said ball scene, you're talking about the contact juggling.
No, I'm talking
Now we're
about
on the same path.
Masquerade.
yeah,
sorry.
the drug peach
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
Well, after drug peach.
Brett's
scene.
laughing at you saying balls.
Don't laugh at me. Laugh at AC/DC, who did a whole song about that misunderstanding. You know the AC/DC song, Big Balls?
No.
Wait, what?
It's a popular song. It's
About
about
Ballroom
big
Blitz.
balls. I like big
yeah.
balls.
Yes, I do remember that one. I don't know. Sorry, I just outed myself as not a big AC/DC fan.
I don't think there's anyone that's
Is
a
that a-
big AC/DC.
Yeah,
fan
like, is that a
anymore.
problem? I don't know.
AC/DC's great. I don't know what's wrong with you people.
I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying, I don't know. They're not David Bowie.
I think it's excusable not to know all the songs.
Yeah,
Fair
exactly.
Did anybody notice the actor in this movie who was also in Highlander?
No.
What?
Yeah. Because
Wait,
he was
is
only
Hoggle?
on screen for like 4 seconds.
Wait, is the dad?
The dad is the militia guy in the Trans Am who got stabbed. He jumped out with the guns to shoot at Kurgan and Castigair when they were fighting.
Oh,
That guy?
wow.
That's the dad. You remember in the beginning, I'm like, where did I see that dad
Yeah,
recently?
yeah.
Interesting. He looked really different in this.
Yeah, he
Well,
did.
He had 4 seconds of screen time in this.
He was holding a baby. You were distracted.
But did he have like different color hair too?
I think just, the baby just really, nothing with the baby really worked for you. So
He's distracted.
actually, in the beginning, when she's like, "I hate you, child," I was like, "Yes, my feelings exactly about children." Maybe that's why I feel this way.
See, you just like hate babies.
I do.
I feel like I'm gonna break babies. Like this is like a real live
Well, you probably
person
will,
that I
considering
could
your
break.
knowledge of them
Yeah,
seems so vast.
They make me nervous. Like here's a person that I could just accidentally destroy.
That was the best part of the Dance Magic Dance scene is when Bowie starts throwing
Throwing
the
the
baby
baby.
doll.
Yeah, he just throws it up in the air and then walks off screen.
Yeah.
And luckily one of the other goblins just caught him. But Bowie's like,
Yeah.
yeah, bored now.
You do
And it's
have
like-
to wonder what he wants the baby for. I mean, he doesn't seem to care about it very much.
He's gonna turn it into a goblin, right?
I
Well,
guess,
I
yeah.
thought he was just fulfilling the expectations of Jennifer Connelly.
I don't know, I guess.
I don't know. But I watched that and I was like, I know it's a puppet, but like, oh my god, he walked away when he threw it. What's
Don't do that. Bowie's an irresponsible parent.
That's like that super old image that became a meme of all those dads tossing their babies up in the air, and there's that one dad in the center that threw the baby way too high.
Oh no.
And it's plagued my whole life. Like, how did that end?
Like, you're
Was
just
that
hoping
baby
it was Photoshop?
Like, yeah, seriously. Like, I almost don't want to know, because if it didn't end well, like, God,
God.
I've seen the moment before this dad dropped his baby. Like,
Cut to
oh.
20 years later, and he's like, "And that's when I dropped you, Roy." He's just showing.
Well, fortunately,
child,
when
the
we
gift.
cut to 20, 25 years later, we've got Duncan Jones, who directed Moon, who's freaking awesome. So I guess Bowie's an all right parent.
Oh, that's his son?
Yeah.
Oh. Wow. That's cool.
Although he did also direct Warcraft, so maybe it's the little delayed brain damage there.
Hey, that actually made a ton of money, so
Yeah, but some
Yeah.
movies have built-in audiences, whether they're good or not.
Yeah. I mean, Suicide Squad made a ton of money too. It doesn't mean it's a good movie.
here?
all right. Brett has found the dads and babies. We can tweet it
Oh no!
for our viewers.
Do I want to see this? Is this gonna? Oh my god!
It's
Wow.
plagued me.
Look at his face too. He's like,
Does he have regret?
So-
I can't quite see.
hold on.
That's like I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Made a terrible mistake.
Can we Photoshop David Bowie in the middle and put Toby as the baby on there? That would be so amazing. I want to do it. I'm gonna do it.
Yes, you can, and you should.
Oh, so good. I've always wanted to do a sketch where it was like David Bowie, but it was like the Goblin King shows up to a house as a babysitter for hire, but he's really going to steal the baby, and then it turns into Catch a Predator, and the Catch a Predator guy comes out. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Like when the To Catch a Predator guy looks in the wrong direction, a bunch of goblins like poke their heads. around
Oh
the
man,
corner
that'd be so
and then
good.
jump back.
I think this movie's amazing. I love everything about it. In fact, I even think that, like, yes, there's things about like the CG that, you know, don't necessarily hold up, but I feel like that just adds to the charm of it, you know? Like,
With
in my
one
opinion,
notable exception,
the owl.
the shitty CG owl.
Yeah. Well, I was even at the end, they clearly had shot the real owl on the black and like comped him in. And I was like, why didn't they just do that for the beginning instead of the CG owl?
But I was mad even at the end when that owl showed up. I was like, is this a theme that they were going for that they lost for the whole movie, and they were just like, haha, bookend it with the owl because that happened.
Well,
like
the owl is David Bowie.
Is it?
Yeah, he turned into the owl.
I looked away at that minute.
Oh, no, the owl is David Bowie. He was always watching her. That's the thing, is like from the very beginning, he was always watching her because he liked her.
So David Bowie invited all those kids to Hogwarts?
What?
Like, isn't that how you get accepted into Hogwarts? Oh. The owl comes.
Yeah, David Bowie comes to you.
Hello, Harry. You're a wizard. No.
Let me sing to you.
That would have been an amazing series of movies.
You remind me of the wizard.
If they just took out Dumbledore and put in Bowie.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Yes.
Yeah.
So on board. Have you seen the picture of Doctor Strange? It's like a picture of Hogwarts and Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
and he's like, hello, I will be your defense against the dark arts teacher.
Yeah.
So good.
So I guess you're still on board with this.
Oh, I love this movie. Yeah. I'll always love this movie. I think as I was watching it, I think for me, it's just everything that was my childhood. And I feel like I feel the same way about this movie that you said you felt about Sandlot. Like Sandlot, I think really speaks to a boy.
Point taken, but I was never a big Sandlot person.
I think you're thinking of me.
But I think my equivalent to this movie is Wizard of Oz.
Okay. But my point being is that just like Sandlot and Stand By Me, I think are the boy experience of childhood. In my opinion, this was the teenage girl experience of my childhood. Like this was everything I wanted and fantasized about as, a little girl. And so
hating children and doing drugs on accident.
Yeah, it was great.
And so, in that way, I think it is a lot like Wizard of Oz. Because a young girl...
Does Dorothy hate children in Wizard of Oz?
No. But I think a young girl in, 1950 whatever... probably would have felt the same way
30?
about Wizard of Oz that you felt about. Would have had the same emotional attachment as you did.
True. Yeah, I mean, Wizard of Oz never gripped me that way. And I think the thing that also really does it for me is David Bowie, because he's just so, charismatic and, just interesting. You just can't help but really like him. And I'm not even a person who likes musicals. I don't even really like musicals that much. Yeah. But him singing to me, I'm like, yeah, go for it. I love the mixture too of sometimes he's not even really singing the song, but it's his song that we're hearing.
Yeah, there's this awesome quote that was attributed to Simon Pegg, but apparently he didn't actually say it, but still a great quote that was basically, you should consider yourself very fortunate to have lived at the same time as David Bowie, which I think is, there's a lot of truth to that. But just imagine David Bowie and Jim Henson in the same room.
Yeah.
That is
amazing.
Yeah. That's magic right there. And I'm so glad we got the product of Jim Henson and David Bowie in the same room.
And that being said, I think that's other things for me that really just hit this movie out of the park is I loved the Muppets as well as a kid. And so I loved the puppetry in this movie. And I also loved magic, and I still love magic. And I love that there's real magic in this movie. That's not something that you see very often anymore. I mean, look at the fucking Now You See Me bullshit movies where it's we're going to use CG instead of real magic. And it's look at the lengths that they went through in this movie to do real practical tricks. And, some of them are even just camera tricks that work so well.
Yeah, there's a very blurry line at a certain point between practical visual effects and magic, an illusion. And when he lifts the door from the ground and then opens it up on a hinge.
Fantastic.
Changes his mind, closes it, and opens it up on an opposite hinge.
All one shot.
All one shot, and it was clearly not composited or anything.
No.
I love that shot.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
It's like I was going to say earlier, the scene in, it might have been The Great Muppet Caper, when the Muppets are riding bicycles. If you ever explain to me how they shot that scene, I will cut you. Like, do not ruin that magic for me, because that is straight up magic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I think, there are some things that visually don't quite hold up anymore, like the CG owl and the really rough, velvet comp thing that they did with the fire dancers. But like, there's so much practical stuff and like just amazing matte paintings that blend seamlessly in with like the set design, that I think it really holds up personally. I think there's those two unfortunate situations that don't, but for the most part, like the imagery is still like just as beautiful.
And like so many things I've said with other movies, the things that don't necessarily work, that may kind of fall flat, I respect them all the more because they were trying things.
Yeah.
And that's what Henson's crew always did. They were always trying things. And I think that's a defense against that CG owl. That was a new way of animating a character, and they wanted to do what they could to try it.
Yeah.
Which I really respect.
If we didn't have people like taking risks, there wouldn't have been Toy Story, which gave birth to a whole new genre of animation, like a whole new way of doing things. So
that has now been overplayed.
Yeah. But I mean, that's like the only way animated films get released now is in 3D.
Yeah.
So, and they look a hell of a lot better than they did in Toy Story.
So I definitely enjoyed this. It was very good. And I don't know what it is about this movie, because we saw it, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And I did not remember most of it.
Interesting.
Which usually happens when I don't like a movie. But I liked it, but there's something about this movie that my eyes slide off of. It's just like, that's great. I really enjoy that, but it's not grabbing me and engaging me. I mean, I can't explain why.
And that's kind of what I was going for when I was saying the whole Sandlot thing is like, again, if you watch and if you have the DVD, I highly recommend you get the special edition DVD of Labyrinth and watch the behind the scenes, because unlike the behind the scenes nowadays that are just people fucking recapping the film and showing you clips from the movie you've already seen, they actually show you footage from behind the scenes and they actually tell you how they did all this shit, and it's so cool. But in the behind the scenes, Jim Henson says, specifically, he's like, we were trying to make a movie that would appeal to teenage girls. And like, I don't blame you for it not being your thing, because I don't think you're the target market. I think teenage girls of that era are the target market.
I think that's an awesome goal. And I think when we were talking about Kevin Smith and how Yoga Hosers is kind of trying to accomplish that same goal, there aren't enough movies for young teenage girls. I don't think that's why I'm not engaging with it, but I'd
like to take a guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I have a guess too. Let's see if it's the same.
There's a couple pieces to this, and it starts off in the negative because it's the thing that I don't like about an entire genre of movies. Even though I liked this movie, the thing that gets in the way of a lot of '80s stuff is there's just too much shit on screen, and a lot of the scenes in this had some of those elements, not as bad as some movies, but like
like Legend.
yeah, but like the even down to I thought it was cool when I brought it up, and then Sam mentioned like the costuming of like the individual goblins. Is like every single one is just nuts. Like there's so much detail in like every little part of it, but like from even a medium distance, and there's 20 of them on screen. It's just like a beautiful clutter that it's hard to like stick in your head visually.
Too busy.
Like it's too busy, and
But then there's scenes like in The Hedge where it's very simplified. So I think it's chaotic with the goblins because it's supposed to feel chaotic and it's supposed to feel like there's a lot of goblins. And so to add to that feeling, their costumes are very detailed and intricate to make it seem like there's probably more of them than there are.
Yeah, he's talking more generally. Like in some of the scenes, when there's a lot of other characters, it's hard to focus on the main characters and the story point of what's at stake. So I think that's kind of what Nick was saying. Like visually, it's really interesting, but then he kind of has trouble staying engaged in the story.
Like the fire dancer scene. Like you have the.
I didn't have trouble there.
No, I mean, it's like, but it's like one example of it where it's like you have, your main character and then like a dozen of these things and then a forest scene that isn't particularly like engaging in its like design. It's just like a forest and there's a ton of forest stuff in the background and it's like, if the comp hadn't been so bad, I don't think any of those characters would have stood out against the forest at all because it was all kind of like that same color palette and just like tons of detail everywhere, and it was hard to focus, I think, in some parts.
Well, I think maybe you should like relook at that scene because they're actually very contrast in color compared to the background, which makes them stand out a lot because the background
that's what I'm saying. They were comped in like a way where their colors didn't even match. Like it was their comp wasn't color corrected for the background.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But if it had been properly matched, I think it would have been like a crazy thing to try and focus on.
I don't know. I think you have good points, but I think for me it's more pacing.
Yeah,
There's a lot of really slow moments.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of like it's very segmented. So I feel like the segments that don't hook up to the main storyline kind of get lost in your memory because they don't really like have an impact on how the story ends up. Like they're really fun and entertaining for sure, and I really enjoy them, but there's nothing at stake for the character in those scenes. Like the ones that I remembered was the house, the ball, or the masquerade, and like the ones.
Well, there's a
really
lot
like
at stake in the masquerade.
That's what I'm saying, and those are the scenes that I remember.
Oh, I see.
Because there's so much at stake, and the scenes that I forgot about would be like the ones with the fire dancing dudes or like the bog sequence. Like,
you know what it's like? It's a lot like the original Star Trek series, which I love on every level, but if I sit down and watch it, it often just puts me to sleep because it's a very slowly paced show. And not like this movie is putting me to sleep, but it's like it's hard to engage when things move so slow sometimes. At least for me.
Do you think you feel that way because you don't actually have any way to measure her progress? Is that why you feel that way?
That's an interesting point.
I think that's probably why you feel like it's slow paced because she's constantly traveling, but you have no concept of how close she is to the castle.
I think that could be the key.
Yeah, like eventually she's just there.
Yeah.
And
that really bums me out when I'm watching a movie when you just have no idea, like it could end or it could continue for 5 more days.
But the thing is visually you don't really have any reference, but there are like 2 or 3 subtle lines throughout it that do give you reference as to how close she is. And I think if you were tuned out and not listening and you missed those lines, you wouldn't know her progress.
They also give you some things that like obfuscate that a little bit too, like the fact that at any point any one of the things she encounters could just like
take her back to the
accidentally lead her back out to the front. Yeah.
Now I'm remembering that's exactly the issue I had with Jumanji. There was no way of knowing how close they were to the end.
Oh, right.
Until it just
on the board.
Suddenly ended.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have those problems. Like personally, but
it's interesting that you could spot the thing that I couldn't put my finger on.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I could assume that probably would be your issue, and again, it's not an issue for me because I'm heavily invested in the characters the whole time, and so to me, it's not. That's not as important.
Which I think probably explains my issue with Star Trek, because I always feel like the original Star Trek are 15 to 20 minute stories stretched out to an hour. So I can always see where the story is going to end, but they're going to take their sweet time getting there.
And
Always
even
kinda-
like half of Next Gen was like that.
Well, the first few seasons, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just check out.
But the thing you said, Brett, about there just being so much detail, that's one of my favorite things about this movie, actually. I love the detail, and I love the fact that even watching it again for like the 20th time or whatever, I'm still seeing detail that I've never noticed before. Like, I love how the back of Hoggle's vest is actually a face.
Yeah,
And
I
the
noticed that. That was
strap
fun.
is,
Yeah.
you know, the strap is like a mouth, and like the tongue is the strap. And like, I love that in the scene where they're in the Goblin City, like in the foreground on buildings, there's even little animated bugs that are moving around on the buildings that, like, I've never noticed that before until I noticed it this time. And they're just like this little detail to add to the chaos. And I really
Yeah.
like it.
I don't think that the detail is inherently bad. I think it's just it's a part of my personal least favorite aesthetic, and I think that's all it really is. Is it's hard for me to focus on stuff. But yeah, it's not like bad for everyone. I think it got in my way.
When there's too much going on, there's nothing going on.
Yeah, like visual static.
I think the thing I like about it is like it makes it feel more real to me, as opposed to making the Wizard of Oz comparison. Like, the Wizard of Oz feels very much like a set the whole time.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, totally.
So this, like, all the stuff in the foreground and whatnot, and like the ridiculous amount of money they must have spent on sparkles because they're just everywhere. But I just think it adds to make it look real for me. It feels like a real place.
So I feel like we've been kind of discussing my feelings and Ash's feelings. So let's get Brett and Sam.
Yeah, I still really like this movie. I forgot how dated some of the little bits are, like the in-between music. Sounds very, very dated. But overall, like, the characters are phenomenal, and I think that's what really sells this movie for me, is just like how many interesting little creatures they created that are so believable and interesting, and like that I've never seen before.
Like every single one.
Every single one,
Even like
yeah.
side characters.
And I
I
think
mean, that's
the brilliant thing of it being a labyrinth is that she turns right. I'm not even talking about the left and right thing at the beginning of the movie. I'm saying any time in the movie she turns right and interacts with this character. Had she turned left, there would have been a completely different crazy character who we'll never get to see. There's
I
so
know.
many other possibilities in this movie.
Or
that we
like
didn't
the
see on
doors.
screen.
Like, what if she had gone through the left door instead of the right door?
Yeah. But like the depth of the characters, there's so many more scattered throughout that labyrinth that we didn't see.
Yeah, and their acting is so wonderful. Like, and they're just beautifully articulated, and just like there's so much craftsmanship that went into every single shot, which I think is what makes it feel like a very fleshed out world. Like, you don't feel like they left details out for you. So that's what grounds it. It makes it feel really like it's there, even though it's so fantastical.
Yeah, like the battle in the castle town, that was like really cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because it didn't feel like a set so much.
Yeah. I mean, everything. Even like the memories land with all the old junk and stuff. Like, so much detail, but everything was very thoughtful. I mean, if you looked at all the individual pieces, like, it wasn't a bunch of random garbage. Like, they were all tied in and like to make the world feel very real.
And I don't know if you noticed, but in the beginning, in her room, all of the characters are in her room.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I want that stuffed animal,
Like,
like the fox.
Even the Goblin King is a statue on her desk. Like,
Oh.
they're all there. The Goblin King, there's the maze. The hedge maze is a little board game. There's Hoggle is a bookend. There's Sir Didymus and Ludo are stuffed animals. Like, they're all the characters are there. And like all the different sets are there. And there's like a panning shot they do in the beginning where they're panning over her stuff and they go past the Wizard of Oz book. And it's all like scenes and characters from the movie that you're seeing before you actually get to see them.
Yeah, I think that's a standard but fantastic device that's used in a lot of these fantasy films. and like even Neverending Story. It's like this entire story takes place in this character's imagination. And I think that's a great thing. Like, that may sound like a critique, but I really like that.
That
Well,
reminds
hold
me a
on.
lot.
I don't think the story takes place in her imagination.
I
Okay.
think that's certainly a possibility.
She be tripping.
that it could.
It is a possibility, but that's not what I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, that idea reminds me a lot of the Edgar Wright foreshadowing. But they talk it all, but it's like the visual version of that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's really great foreshadowing with the set design.
And something small you said, Sam, that I wanted to drive home. The difference between the David Bowie music and the movie score was
Yeah.
stark. Like,
Yeah.
there was such a big difference between those two types of music.
Brett
Like,
thinks
they
it was
didn't-
all written by Bowie, and I don't.
No.
I agree. In the very beginning, it says composed by David Bowie.
Songs composed by
But at
David
the
Bowie.
end, they list exactly
and
what
then
it is.
okay.
there's a movie score by somebody else, and it's strikingly different.
So,
Very
but I think that might also be part of the reason why the Dance Magic Dance didn't work for me is because it was really similar to the movie score. Like whoever scored the rest of it, like heard that song and kind of like did like the cheese drums and funk bass all over the movie.
Compare it to Highlander, which we just saw. Songs by Queen, but movie score by Michael Kamen. And I think those did meld together very well.
So I've discussed the couple of things I didn't like. It's technical little bits. But I was actually really surprised by how good this movie was. It was really
Come
good.
to the
And
Bowie side.
The story was great. The characters were fantastic. And even within my dislike of the 80s everything is junk and garbage aesthetic, like there was a lot of stuff in this movie to like visually, like the costumes, and I totally noticed the face on Hoggle's shirt, and in the battle scene there was like the fountain with like
The different peeing goblins.
Sculpted, but they're all like sculpted, and there's just anywhere that you wanted to get lost in this movie visually, you could, which is really cool. And it doesn't work most of the time. People go after that aesthetic. So like, I think this might be, for me, the best possible, like the best case scenario for that look. Yeah, no, it was great. Great movie.
So what do you think, Bryce?
Still liked it.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like we got through the other end of the labyrinth.
Woohoo! Yeah, if you like the show, this is part of the Laugh Stash TV network of awesome content. We have the podcast and a YouTube channel with tons of awesome awesome shows.
Slipping into Highlander there.
It's the Highlander Connery is sticking with me.
Yeah.
We have tons of awesome shows. We got a drinking show with me and Ash. We got video game parodies. Just tons of great stuff. Check it out, YouTube, Laugh Stash TV.
And you can also follow us on Twitter at LaughStashTV, or you can follow this podcast at Let's Rewatch. And do be sure to send us your movie requests if you have requests for movies you want us to watch. We've already done quite a few. In fact, Highlander was one. We have other ones too, but we also appreciate everybody tweeting at us, like William and Ralph and Lore Podcast actually liked one of our tweets. Gravity Beard Podcast, all those people. Jennifer Wolf, thank you all for tweeting at us, and be sure to share the show with other people.
And if you liked our podcast, please go ahead and give us a review on iTunes or Google Play Music. Also, please go ahead and rate us on Libsyn. Fuck, what is it?
You can leave a comment
Leave
there.
a comment. comment. Leave a comment on Libsyn about
I hope
how
you keep
I
all
can't
these
remember
in.
my fucking outro. God,
Oh.
we did doing this for over a year.
Wait, hold on. There's a new service too, and I forget what I added us on.
Please don't add more.
Okay, well, forget it then. But it's a good one.
So we do this every 2 weeks. So make sure your subscriptions are all up to date, and join us again in a couple weeks for more Let's Rewatch.
Yeah, next time we're going to be watching Trial of the Screaming Foreheads.
What? There's so many questions.
Is it just an image of like...
Is that a forehead or like a marshmallow man?